Welcome back, everyone, to another edition of Introspection, Grief to Growth. I'm Amy Lindner-Lesser, your host or hostess, whatever word you prefer. And I'm here today with a guest who, it's very interesting how we met. I had attended through Zoom a workshop at my local library. Part of it was to try to make some friends and meet people, because when I moved here, it was the middle of COVID and people were still prisoned in their houses. So I went to my computer in my living room and participated in a journaling workshop with a woman who I then saw a few months later on a podcast or a Facebook Live with a friend of mine who happened to be my Reiki teacher and master, who grew up with this guest. And so it's interesting how our lives, people come to us from different parts of our lives when they're meant to be in our life. So this guest, Janine Datilio Camerata, is a journaler, an author, a dream guide, an energy healer, and a teacher. She has over 40 years of experience with personal journaling. She's a Reiki master, a certified active dream teacher, and narrative therapy trained. Janine fosters curiosity and connection with everyone she meets. So help me welcome Janine to our show. Welcome to Introspection, the podcast about moving from grief to growth. I'm Amy Lindner-Lesser, your host. Introspection started out as a podcast about hospitality, innkeeping, and innkeepers. After about a year, I realized that my life and interests have morphed from hospitality to helping others navigate from grief and loss to growth and living. In this new version of Introspection, I will be talking about my personal experiences with loss, and there are quite a few, what I've learned along the way through my professional training, as well as from my coaching experiences. I'll also be bringing in guests to share interesting ideas. So grab a beverage, find a comfy place, take a deep breath, and listen in.
Hello.
Hi. It's so nice to have you here. And we've chatted a few times, and we did meet because I did I believe it was a dream class that you did at
Mhm.
a local
Sure,
crystal
I
store,
yeah, yeah.
spiritual store. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I saw that you were offering it, and I was like, I really want to meet Janine in person, because I knew I wanted to have you come and talk about journaling. Anybody who has worked with me or has listened to this podcast or read any of my chapters in the 3 books that I co-authored will know that journaling is, to me, one of the best ways to process emotion, to look at our lives. And so I'm thrilled to welcome you here.
I'm very happy to be here, and I love how you're talking about the synchronicity of how people come into our lives, and especially when we need them and for
Yeah,
the reasons we need them.
it's true. Yeah, I had an interesting experience last night where I was talking to someone about synchronicity and
Mhm.
about our calling in life and why we pick what we're doing and whether or not I was on the right path, because I've done all kinds of things. And the fascinating thing was I asked the question if my best friend who had passed away about, oh gosh, now it's going to be 3 years ago, if she was here to help steer me to this path. And the answer was yes. So
Mm.
it is a synchronicity. Not the
Yeah.
only reason, but definitely one, because it was her death that had me go into life transitions coaching and grief coaching.
And it doesn't even maybe that was the catalyst that brought you there, but then people can continue to guide us even when they do pass through our dreams, through our journaling, and keeping those connections open.
Yep. I hear her laughing sometimes
Mhm.
at me, sometimes with me.
Well, that's what a friend does, right?
That's right. We had many, many hours of happiness and laughter.
That's wonderful.
Were you always a journaler?
I was. I still have my seventh grade journal, and I think it was more like sporadic. I was always writing poetry. I loved to read. And so my seventh grade journal is really filled with, maybe what I got for my birthday, what boy I was in love with that week. So it was just a very, um, a little bit doodling type of thing. And I really started journaling more, kind of little pockets of it when I was in my 20s and just what I was doing, what was going on with my life. But I committed to journaling when I became pregnant with my first son, Nick. And I wanted them to have those stories of their life and our family's life. So I've kept a journal to them for Nick would be 30 years old this year. And so the little journals back here, these are all my boys' journals, and the rest are mine. So I journal everything. I'm constantly writing something down, so it's really a part of my everyday life.
You mentioned Nick and you said he would be 30 this year. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Yeah, so I have two boys. They're 2 years apart, and Nick, when he was 12, he started feeling very fatigued, and we couldn't figure out what was wrong with him until he was diagnosed with leukemia on July 4th, 2008. And so we ventured into this really tumultuous and hard journey. And it was a very short journey. It was only 4 months before he passed away, just after his 13th birthday. He had complications with chemotherapy. And even then, I was journaling, kind of trying to keep track. All of a sudden, you're having this beautiful life and you're thrown into this whirlwind of cancer, and there's no catching up. There's no knowing if you're making right decisions because you really are sleep deprived and you're trying to care for your children. So after that, I really went into a downward spiral. And this is 17 years ago. And we started a foundation that emotionally and financially supported children with cancer at Albany Med. And so I put myself into that for 12 years. And during that time, journaling became kind of my anchor. I would just angrily scribble in there, couldn't even make sense of it. Very much also always been a dreamer too, but trying to connect with Nick in my dreams. And I would dream about him. So I wanted to record these things. And I continued to realize after a while that journaling became my pause place, even though it was emotional setting, just trying to contact with my son. I would write letters to him, like, what are you doing, where are you, and just losing that connection to him physically. Felt like I lost a connection to him spiritually. But slowly I started to connect with him in a different way, through my dreams, through my journaling, and the journaling held me so that I could learn to sit with my feelings, because for years I didn't. And the grief really damaged my body. It just really, for a long time, I didn't know if I could live without my son, even though I have another son. Um, and the journaling really saved me. And having that connection with Nick, knowing that he's still with me in a different way, um, has helped me to live a full life now. And so I wanted to let other people know that it's possible that you can live alongside grief, it never goes away, but also have hope and connection with your loved ones.
Have you found that Nick comes to you in your writing? Like, do you do automatic writing?
I actually have I have a bunch of different journals that I use, but this is my journal that I have specifically for Nick. So for the last 17 years, any type of milestone, any holiday, I would make sure that I would sit and write to Nick, just so I could get my emotions out before I'm coming together with family or whatever it was. But recently, I really had been finding that the automatic writing, and we're kind of co-creating right now. And so it's been a very interesting and illuminating process that I'm actually writing about, and I hope to share with people through my online magazine Substack that I'm doing.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. I happen to know that you've also written 3 books for adolescents.
Sure. I have 4 books that are for middle grade, and those are, I call them a creative memoir because before Nick was sick, I started writing in a different way to tell the boys' lives through fiction. And so it's a time travel through a jigsaw puzzle where they go to the land of Dragonia and they have to fulfill these quests. And they have their 2 best friends, and then their 2 cousins join them in later books. And I started writing the book in 2007, and I kept coming up with the theme that Nick, who is Luke in the story, that he kept getting lost. He was disappearing. Something was happening to him. And this was before he was diagnosed with cancer, and I didn't know why, and so I stopped writing the book. And then after he passed, I decided I want to one, write about grief. There's definitely loss in this book, but it's through fiction. Fiction softens the harshness of reality, and especially with kids who are dealing with losing a sibling, losing a cousin, a friend from cancer, or any kind of disease or loss. It throws their whole worlds into a downward spiral, much worse than even adults because they don't know how to handle it. So I have those books that go through each one of the kids' experiences and how what Luke ends up, who is Nick, ends up remaining in Dragonia. Spoiler, but it's okay. You get that pretty quickly.
My
And then I have,
grandson is reading them now,
oh, good. You have to let me know what he thinks.
and
I'd love to
he's
hear it.
9. He's a big reader,
Perfect.
and
Perfect.
I said, "A friend of mine wrote these, so I really want you to read them and then tell me about them."
Yes, yes, I'd love to hear about it. And then my other 2, my first 2 books are young adult to adult time travel. You can tell I'm a time travel fantasy writer, and that's through dreams into the world of Celtic Ireland, 3rd century Celtic Ireland, which I love. And then I have a nonfiction book about what makes them amazing, inspiring stories of young adults battling cancer. So these were kids who were battling cancer, and I interviewed them, their families, and how they get through, and Nick's in that book as well.
Life quakes or life transitions and the aftershocks that follow are something we all experience. A life quake can stem from the heartbreaking grief that arises from the loss of a loved one or the disorientation felt when life suddenly shifts due to the loss of a job, relationship, identity, or health challenge. Learning to navigate these transitions with mindfulness, grace, and self-compassion is the key to finding your way back to joy, happiness, and inner peace. Advanced Grief Recovery Method Specialist and Certified Life Transition Coach, Amy Lindner-Lesser, MSW, expertly supports clients to navigate their life quakes and transitions with warmth, kindness, and grace. Learning to accept support as you navigate your way through the aftershocks is one of the most powerful gifts you can give yourself. Learn more at INNtrospection.com. That's INNtrospection.com.
I love how you've taken heartbreak, just to
Mhm.
me, one of the worst things possible, and have turned them into positive silver linings, if you will. I believe that everything is a lesson for us. We may not have wanted the lesson, but if we can look at it, there is something positive, and a silver lining that comes through each of them.
Mhm. And I think it's also a choice. Like I had to make the choice that I was going to live without my son physically here, and I had to make the choice of what I was going to do with my life, and I couldn't stand the fact that I wasn't going to do something with Nick's loss. And And the world really needed to know what an amazing kid he is. And he was just so vibrant and charismatic and he would be the first one to help so many people, like even the kids in his school. He protected me from bullies. He'd pick up my books. He was just so caring. And so he still comes through. He informs so much of my writing and everything that I do. It's hard to not let everyone know. He's a wonderful, amazing young man. And then my son Stefan, he's 27, and we have a beautiful relationship. And we talk about our dreams, and I think by me connecting and healing in this way, I was able to help my son to navigate loss, and we all have different ways of doing it. And journaling is a through line. How can we use journaling to help us connect with our loved ones? How can we use it to be self-aware and care for ourselves, even when we're caring for people who are ill? That's the first thing is our self-care.
Mhm.
And how can we use the journaling to just check in and say, how am I really doing? And how is my energy? And what do I need right now? And we may not know, but at least the journal holds us to get us through that.
And when we stop sort of thinking, when we go into the automatic, let's just let the feelings out, all
Mhm.
of a sudden it opens up so much that we're not aware of.
Right.
When my husband was going through his cancer treatment and eventually up to his death, he was journaling, which
Mhm.
I did not know. I mean, I would journal every night because I couldn't tell him how frustrated and how scared. I wanted to be his support, and I didn't want him to think that I was falling apart, because if
Mhm.
I fell apart, how could he be strong? And
Right.
I found his journal afterward, and
Uh,
it was
Gift.
beautiful. And my kids have read it, and it's helped them also understand, because
Mhm.
they were young. They were 11 and 14 when their dad died.
That's the other thing is maybe people write their journal. It could be a personal journal that you end up sharing, and there's always the concern, what happens when I die? What do I do with my journals? It's another story, but it gives us a view into what a person is feeling and what they're doing. And the other thing too about a personal journal is you need to be honest with it. If you're looking to journal for healing or self-awareness, if you say, hey, every day I'm doing great, nothing's wrong, then you're lying to yourself, and you're not going to have any change if change is what you wish for. Being honest and keeping your journal in a safe place so that prying eyes don't see them is important. But it's also, if you're writing about something, maybe you're upset at someone and you write something in your journal, it doesn't mean that's how you feel about that person all the time. It's how you're feeling in that moment. And a lot of times writing something down is clarified. Okay, what is my role in that argument? How can I come to this place of meeting them in the middle? And so just knowing that the journal doesn't mean this is how I feel about this person all the time. And
Right.
that's really important to remember.
In one of the programs that I lead, we write a letter to someone who has passed, usually, although it doesn't have to be somebody who's died, to talk about the unresolved issues. When they were angry, what they did that hurt them, and then what the quote victim did to either contribute to it or to make it worse, and to
Right.
apologize. And then the important thing is that you get it all out, and then you destroy it.
Hmm.
Don't keep it, because you don't want to give it to that person. It's not really for them. And as you said, it may not be the way you feel 100% of the time. It may be how you felt at that one instance.
Right.
And, we can't change our past. All we can do is live in the future. We can't even really predict our future. Live in the
Mhm.
present.
Right.
And so to destroy it will help you. It gets it off your chest, and it keeps it from destroying somebody else.
Yeah, it releases the energy of that negativity as well, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of disconnecting that energetic cord if it's there or any of that negativity. So it's definitely a good process.
And what would you say to somebody who is uncomfortable writing? Somebody who doesn't think they're a good writer, has never journaled, has a difficult time maybe expressing their feelings, and you're telling them, I'm telling them, journal.
Yeah.
What do they do? I mean, do they have to be able to hold a pen and write something?
Well, I always say I personally prefer writing with a pen and a notebook. One, it helps to calm your nerves and it also releases toxicity. You can do it on a computer if you need to, but there's a slowing down. Again, it's that pause place. It's calming our nervous system. And what I always tell people is find a journal that brings you joy. I have like a slew of different journals. This is the one that I write to Stefan for. It's a Peter Parker one, and it's beautiful, and I love writing in it. And I have a special pen. I have different color pens, so I like to make journaling fun. It's almost like it's a kindergarten class when I do my workshops. You have stickers, washi tape, but make it fun and create a special place in your house, whatever, have a cup of tea, whatever it is that, okay, this is my time. I'm going to sit down and write. You cannot do journaling wrong. It's impossible. You don't have to be a writer. You don't have to be trained, and you can doodle. Even if you write, this is how I'm feeling right now, 2 words, how I'm feeling, once a day, that's it. You don't have to have this slew of different techniques that you have to use. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be neat. And that's why I think we put too much pressure on ourselves, especially if you're a perfectionist. That's a tough one to do. But just writing whatever comes to you, and then when you start feeling the benefits of it, and notice, I feel pretty good. I'm going to continue doing this. And I also like reflecting back. When I am going through something, you forget what your ups and downs, and you forget how bad you were. Like I will look back every October when I lost Nick, and I see the kind of the ups and downs. And for a long time with my journaling, when I finally made change, I said, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I keep spiraling in October, and what am I going to do? But if I didn't keep track of that, I wouldn't have known that. So start small. Don't give yourself any pressure, and know that you can't do it wrong. There's actually no particular way to journal. It's whatever you feel in your heart brings you joy and helps you.
I love that. I love that it can be one or two words. It can be
Mhm.
stickers, it could be
Yeah,
drawings, whatever it is that makes it easy. And
right.
you might try at the beginning to write 3 words, or, maybe answer one question every day, and it could be the same question. And
Mhm.
then as you get comfortable with that, to change and add more, or try something different.
Yes, and I'm always offering I have journal prompts on my Substack, on my website. I teach classes, so there's always if you don't know what you're going to write about, I always have an answer for you. And I have a 4-part journal technique for your daily journal entry that it's really a very easy way to get people to start journaling.
And you have an example, so why don't we look at the handout and talk
Okay,
about it?
sure. I tell people again, have a journal that you want, and in the beginning, and I actually got this organization tip from bulletjournal.org, and it has saved me finding information, my creative writing, doctor's notes, everything, because I index all my journals in the beginning. So I'll number my pages, and then I just put titles on the top of the page, maybe like doctor's appointment, or memoir idea, or journal prompt that I want to use in my class. And so when you title it, it's much easier to find it. And so With the journal, I start with do a 2-word check-in. What are 2 words that would describe how you're feeling right now? And it could be an emotion, it could be kind of replying like with the weather. Are you feeling rainy? Are you feeling really sunny? Just 2 words that are describing how you're feeling right now. And then why? This is where self-awareness comes in. Why are you feeling that way? And maybe just writing it down is all you need to do and you feel complete. But perhaps, maybe if you're feeling sad or you're angry, is there an action that you could take to help you shift your mood? So just check in, why, and action or no. That's the first part. The second part is just record what happened in your day. So you're like a reporter. You're coming into the room, and this is what happened in my day. Who were you with? Where'd you go? When did this happen? Did something significant happen in your day? And what made it so significant? And so you may not write every minute detail about your day. Maybe you're on vacation and you really love writing about your meal. So you're going to do a little more details about your meal. So then you add in that sensory detail to cement. That's 3, to cement the memory. And so what are you seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, hearing? And that helps, especially if you're writing memoir or you're writing for someone else who's eventually going to read it. It brings us into that moment. And then the fourth is feeling. How did you feel about your day? And maybe you do a check-in later on. So sometimes I'll even timestamp. I'll do in the morning and then timestamp at night. How am I feeling tonight? And what in my day brought me joy? What do I think I want to do again tomorrow? Or what did I learn and could I maybe have done a little bit better? So these 4 parts are just different ways that you can access journaling and see what you want to focus on, or you can do all of them. 1, 2, it's really up to you.
You mentioned like writing to Nick on special days, special occasions.
Mhm.
And I've talked in the past about my New Year's Eve practice. Every New Year's Eve, I write a letter to my husband about
Mm.
what
Mm.
happened during the year, what our kids were up to, what our now grandchildren are up to. I think I did it because I've never really liked New Year's Eve except one year, and that was the year we found out our older daughter was born. We were asked if we wanted to adopt, and it was just so it was the best New Year's Eve. And each year it's a little tough. It's tough to not be around him. So
Yes,
that's my way of bringing him through the year with me. And
I
then
love that.
I will occasionally do a journal entry on something special that's happened that I want to make sure to remember to bring into that letter. And so that's another. A journal can be a letter to somebody.
Yes, yes, and that, I mean, that's what I do. On one of my this past for Mother's Day, I actually on my magazine on Substack, I published some of the letters that I had for Nick, and I can read a short one if you want. It really connects me with him. And then I do the same thing. I let him know what's going on with his little brother, his dad, his cousins. And it's just like it's a check in, and it really helps you to feel like that person is with you.
Hmm.
And early on, I would be like thinking, okay, well, it's almost like he's away at college. And we're just connecting through letters, and he's off doing what he's supposed to be doing, and he has his purpose. And I really believe that for our children, for those of us, who have lost a child, and it doesn't matter if you gave birth to a child, if you adopted a child, however, if someone is your think of them as your child, they chose you to help them in this life. And so what an honor to be able to do that and know that you can do what needs to be done for their highest and best good. That's what a parent is it's all about.
Any advice for somebody who might want to do something like gratitude journaling?
Some people do it in a separate journal. I'll do, sometimes I'll do a heart in my journal, and I'll do, what was wonderful about the day, what was my joyful moment in the day, and I do a kind of a month in review. So at the end of each month, I do a highlights page of the wonderful things that happened in my month, because sometimes you forget even what did I do in the beginning of the month. And so it really helps lift me up if I've had an especially rough month. Okay, there's always something that has been beautiful and joyful in my life, and let me reflect on that. So highly recommend it if that's something that, especially if you're having a hard time. Just gratitude and what is bringing you joy in your life can be very healing.
I find them if I can turn things into something to be grateful for, it often helps me get through something.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely. And I always, the reason why I started teaching journaling for people and doing my classes, dream guidance, energy healing, is because it was very important for me for people to know that there's hope. And sometimes it doesn't seem like there is, but there is hope when you can connect in some way, when you just know that there's a path to living life alongside grief.
it's very true. People talk about, getting over grief. You don't get over it.
So,
The best analogy I've heard is like either a bad scar from an injury or even from surgery that
mhm,
at first, you might have a bandage on it and it's really big and it's very raw and it's painful and you might see the stitches, you might see blood. Then as
mhm,
time goes on, the stitches come out. It's healing. There might be a scab. Sometimes
mhm,
we knock the scab and the scab part of it comes off and it hurts again and then it rescabs. And then after a while, the scar becomes much smaller. And
mhm.
sometimes it becomes just a very faint line that you may not see often.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you knock into it, it'll
Mhm,
still hurt as if it was the first day. And
mhm.
that's what grief is. It's
Yeah.
like that. And my dog agrees.
Yeah. And it's also like a phantom, like if someone lost their arm or their leg, it's, I feel like it's a phantom pain too. Like, okay, there's supposed to be someone here by me. And now, like energetically, I can feel Nick when he's around me. And but it takes work to, a lot of times, especially if someone's worried about, I can dream of the person I lost. How can I do that? Grief kind of puts like a little layer over us to prevent us from that dreaming. And there are ways that you can build that connection, but it's sitting in stillness, it's holding something of theirs, it's asking them, can you send me a dream? It's all about connecting and being open to it. And sometimes that takes time, and sometimes it's you need someone else to help guide you in that way. It could be energy clearing, it could be journaling, it's whatever it is that that person is connecting with.
Definitely. Yeah, I know that I often will ask Steve to, you know, either give me a sign or to be here to support me. And then I will feel like the pressure of somebody's hands on my shoulders. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know there are no hands there, at least not real hands, but I know
But
that with
energetically.
me and guiding me. And
Mm-hmm.
then in the journaling, the automatic journaling to me is just amazing when you sit with the pen in hand on the paper and don't control it. You just
Mm-hmm.
let whatever is flowing through without filtering just write. And that will often be, his words because I'm like, I would never have said that.
Right, and really sitting, someone doing that, it's sitting and taking deep breaths and asking the intention, and just stillness is important when you're doing something like that, and when you're connecting, and when you're using journaling as a path to healing, and not second guessing yourself, trusting the words that come onto the page is very important.
I think Hershey was getting some messages from somebody.
Once you join in.
Now he's back sleeping.
Yeah, what a dog does, right?
Yep. Any additional advice you would give to somebody who is starting out?
Well, one, you can join any of my classes if you like. I do online, hybrid, and connect with someone. Even use like a book, opening a book and picking out a prompt, like a sentence, using quotes and journaling from them. I journal from photos. There's so many different ways that you can access journaling, and just to have grace with yourself. And if it's something that you really want to do, try it and bring joy into it. Make it fun even when you're journaling about something hard, because humor, lightheartedness, all of that helps us on the healing path.
Yeah, I think your statement of give yourself grace is so
Mhm.
important. And don't be
Absolutely.
afraid. As you said before, you can't do it wrong. Whatever you do is right.
Hmm.
And for anyone who loves, like I do, stationery products, the
Yes.
idea of going out and buying a new journal for something and a new
Mhm.
pen for something, or taking out a whole array of pens and saying, "Oh, I'll write this page in this color and this page
Mhm.
in this color," whatever it is. It's creative, it's fun, and when you look, when you start, you've got an empty page. And when you're
Mhm.
finished, you've got a page with words and color and stuff on it, good
Yeah.
stuff.
And who you are, yeah, reflects who you are. And also, don't worry about editing it. Don't criticize. Don't judge. Your journal's not for anybody else to see. You don't have to go in and spell check. It doesn't have to be proper grammar, written neatly. It's for your eyes only. And if you ever, for some fiction or memoir writers, then you can look in your journal. You can take threads of what you want to establish and do something separate, but in your personal journal, it is specifically for you.
And what about coming up with after you die? How do you decide what to do with your journals?
Two ways. One, you can get rid of your journals before you are sick, or I mean, you never know when what something can happen, but you could. Some people burn their journals. I like to reflect and look back on them, but I have already established with my son that he is the keeper of the journals. He's the keeper of his personal the journals I've written to him and his brother, but he can do whatever he likes with my journals. If he wants to read them, with the caveat that you may not want to hear everything about mama, but this is my life. And so do what you will. Please recycle. And you just let people know, what to do with your journals. Put it in your will. If you're a big journal writer, all of those things are important to let people know your wishes.
I want to remind our viewers or our listeners that grief happens not just when somebody dies, that we grieve sometimes over happy occasions that move us out of the safe relationship and the familiar relationship that we've had. So I talked about when we adopted our first daughter and she was 2 and she was toddling around and walked in the bathroom on me. Now, I was thrilled to have her, not necessarily in the bathroom, but what I realized at that point in my life was that was the end of my privacy.
Mm.
And I did grieve my privacy for a little while. We grieve when we move from one town to another. We're leaving a familiar home. We grieve when we retire. Often that's a very happy occasion. And at the same time, we have no idea how to put one foot in front of the other. When, empty nest syndrome, when our kids grow up,
Mhm.
on both sides, there's grief. There's
Right.
grief to the parents for not having their children at home anymore, and for the kid, the adult, who's no longer at home in their familiar surroundings with their family and their friends because they may have moved to another town. There are a
Right.
whole lot of reasons for grief. And any life transition is worth keeping a journal over. Don't forget that. Help
Hmm.
yourself go through it. We've talked about how it takes about 90 seconds for your emotional system to be able to process an emotion. That's all. And
Mm,
we need to allow ourselves to fully process. And yet we have a society that tells us to stop.
right.
So don't
Exactly.
stop. Keep going. If it's crying, cry.
Hmm.
If it's not the right place, then remove yourself and put yourself in a place that is okay. Don't squelch it because, as you said, for you, holding in grief for an extensive period of time is unhealthy for the body. I just read that it's 3 weeks. If you hold grief in for more than 3 weeks, it will somehow surface somewhere else.
Yeah, it manifests physically, and it happened with me with autoimmune disease, and but it wasn't anything that someone was saying, "Hey, you better help yourself somehow, be in the grief, but take care of yourself." But and so that's what I'm trying to share with people.
Thank you so much for sharing today. It's been a pleasure to have you. And everybody go out and buy a new journal and a pen
Yes,
and
come journal with me.
start writing. Take care. We'll see you again in
Bye.
about 2 weeks. If you liked what you heard on this podcast and want to hear more, please follow us and tell your friends. You can also find me on Facebook at Amy Lindner-Lesser, Grief to Growth Life Coaching, and on LinkedIn at Amy Lindner-Lesser. Thanks again for listening.